The Chinese Premier Li Qiang has called for countries to oppose decoupling from the Chinese economy. Well, the Premier also hitting back at accusations from the US and EU that Chinese firms benefit from unfair subsidies and are flooding their markets with cheap green technologies. Well, his comments at the World Economic Forum in Dalian come as China and the European Union prepare to hold talks on the EU's planned tariff hikes on imported Chinese-made electric vehicles. Well, let's go live to our correspondents Tan Hui and Olivia Siong at the forum in Dalian.
I'll tell you, it's been a packed day. Things are kind of quieting down here today, but I can assure you there has been a lot happening. We saw over 1,600 participants at what's known as the Summer Davos, which is the World Economic Forum's second largest annual gathering. They come from the private and public sector. We've seen startups as well as large corporations also discussing many key topics that are being discussed around the world today. And I think one of the big themes here has been on the next frontiers of growth. And we have seen several key issues emerge, from artificial intelligence to the global economic outlook. But a lot of the buzz earlier on this morning was on the Chinese Premier's appearance and his special address.
That's right. I mean, all eyes were on Chinese Premier Li Qiang. He gave some remarks and the moderator also asked him a few questions during the Q&A session, and it ranged from green transition to AI as well as geopolitics. So take a look.
Offering his thoughts on the next frontiers for growth, the theme of the World Economic Forum meetings in China this year, Chinese Premier Li Qiang said slowing global growth is to blame for the growing rivalries between countries and companies in many industries in the world.
At the macro level, we would see a slowdown of economic growth and find it more difficult to make the pie of global economy bigger. At the meso level, we would see declining return on investment and diminishing returns to scale. At the micro level, we would see intensifying competition among market players and spiraling involution, a word created and popular in China. The neck-to-neck contest for available resources is to some extent triggering problems including backlash against globalization and escalation of geopolitical conflicts in some places in the world.
But exploring new frontiers should not be a zero-sum game, China's number 2 leader said.
Confronted with the growth predicament of the world economy, maximizing one's own benefits at the expense of others' interests, or even resorting to regressive actions of decoupling, disrupting supply chains, and building small yards with high fences would only push up operational costs, sever the economic links between regions, and aggravate tensions and disputes.
In the half-hour-long speech, Mr. Li also defended China's new energy industry amid accusations from EU and US policymakers that China has flooded their markets with heavily subsidized products such as electric vehicles.
The advanced electric vehicles, lithium batteries, and PV products made by Chinese companies have not only met domestic demand, but also enriched supply in the international market.
It's the second time Mr. Li addressed the Summer Davos since taking office in March 2023. The Chinese leader has been on a charm offensive at home and overseas and aims to win back wary investors. The 64-year-old just recently concluded a series of high-level visits to Australia and Malaysia, where he urged greater economic cooperation. China is continuing its post-pandemic economic recovery, with growth targets set at around 5% this year. While the economy has grown faster than expected in the first quarter at 5.3%, foreign direct investment continues to slump for the 12th straight month.
Another interesting note is that Premier Li said that China is confident and capable of reaching economic growth targets of around 5%. And this assurance comes just before the third plenum is set to happen in July. That's when the Chinese Communist Party members and leaders gather, and typically the economy is in focus. And also this assurance comes just as China is trying to fend off a potential trade war with the US as well as the EU. That is possibly something that they are looking at in terms of fending off that trade war coming when it comes to EVs, which is something that you are very familiar with. You have done many stories on that.
Yes, I think one of the things that it does highlight is how intertwined the globe is. And one of the things that has been framing the discussions here today have been the uncertainties that are common to countries across a whole range of issues, including at one of the panels that I moderated earlier this morning on the global energy transition. Now, according to a report released by the World Economic Forum, which benchmarked over 100 countries on their energy system performance, it did find that, yes, overall there has been progress made on the energy transition globally. But one worrying finding perhaps is that the pace and the momentum of this energy transition has actually slowed. And so one of the panelists was the founder and chairman of Chinese EV battery giant, CATL, Robin Zeng, and he gave his perspective on how to have a more global collaborative approach in tackling some of the challenges that we have seen in driving forward this energy transition. Have a listen.
I made some adjustment already, so that's why when I discuss with all the people here, partners, I say, hey guys, don't be too greedy. Try to get everything 100% by every different nations. We cannot have 300%, right? Then the 100% we do the 40%, 30%, 30%, maybe a little bit adjustment. Some 20, some 25, doesn't matter. Share. And also, we're willing to share our technology to each one in the world. For example, battery makers in Europe, battery makers in Korea, battery makers in US. We're willing to talk to them, say, even battery makers, we can license this technology to you. We can help you to build this industry there. Because climate change and sustainability is so important for each and everyone here, because we cannot living for a long life, or maybe forever. So everyone here, for example, I'm 50-some years old already. So I have maybe 30 years to go. 30 years times 365, maybe 10,000 days only.
It's
20,000 days, even you're longer, right? But you put the book here, you peel the one today gone. So what's the money for? Yeah. You are better to really do something meaningful for your life.
So, Olivia, you moderated a panel earlier today. I think the question about money keeps coming up. Right. The cost of energy transition seems to be coming up to the trillion. So it seems like there's still the issue about the investment gap.
That's right. I mean, green financing is a big topic, and we do know also that what's affecting the energy transition and also those geopolitical tensions, economic volatility, trade barriers that we have seen. But with regard to green financing, there is a gap between the advanced economies and the emerging economies. And I posed that question on what tools are needed to bridge that gap to one of my panelists. Have a listen.
One of the other things we have seen is that global clean energy investment has gone up by 40% since 2020. However, this has been primarily concentrated in the advanced economies. So in your opinion, what sort of tools are needed to bridge this gap?
I agree with the report, which have a lot of informative results on the very unbalanced of investment and everything. But one thing we want to see is investment follows market, policy stability, productivity, effectiveness. So somehow investment is a result of this globalized division of labor. Having said that, I still think it's very important, as you said, to improve this unevenness. What are the tools? First and foremost, as Paul mentioned, is the global collaboration still very, very important to drive the cost, which thanks to all of you, the R&D investment have driven down the clean energy technology cost for over 90% in the past decades. However, it's still not affordable enough to a lot of global South countries' citizens.
But one thing that's driven down the price of renewables has been China's huge push in that area, but there has still been criticism from the West about overcapacity, and then there's criticism that Chinese companies are enjoying massive support in terms of state support and flooding the market with cheaper EVs. Prompting action from US and the EU.
Yeah, I think overcapacity has increasingly become this buzzword that we've heard about in the headlines. It's something that the Chinese Premier perhaps addressed subtly, not mentioning exactly overcapacity, but we do know that China has pushed back at those accusations repeatedly. We also heard at another panel session from China's special climate envoy, who defended China's approach. In fact, he said that it's because of China's manufacturing these huge amounts of, for example, EVs, solar panels, batteries, that it has helped push the price of all these clean technology down, which has benefited the world. So he had this to say when it came to those accusations of overcapacity. Have a listen.
China will continue to build up its manufacturing capacity to maintaining this current price, to support its own deployment nationally, to substitute our current energy system. Globally, we need to be united to avoid, I'm not going to say fight against, we need to avoid these unilateral actions, avoid these non-tariff actions, because they are going to help raise the cost. The recent report by the McKinsey, international consultancy, if some parties are insisting going to decoupling from the renewable energy that be manufactured in China, renewable energy equipment manufactured in China, it will result in the increase of cost by 20%. Were the world prepared for this increase of cost or not? We need to. I think this will be becoming not an issue for China, it's an issue for global.
And you know what? These discussions taking place ahead of another very big international meeting, those United Nations-led climate talks, COP29, that's to take place later in the year. And Mr. Liu, we heard him say that the world needs to come to an agreement on green financing before this big meeting takes place in order to move forward the energy transition.
But before that happens, we will be here all the way till the end of the week in Dalian, China, and we will have a long list of guests lined up. We have thought leaders as well as government officials, including Malaysia's Economic Minister, Rafizi Ramli. He will be speaking to Olivia. But both of us will be here on the ground. And back to you, Oteli.
Really looking forward to that. Thanks so very much, Olivia and Sihui, for all those highlights from Dalian.